For the people that don't know, gamification is basically the idea of taking what makes video games fun for people and applying that to another field.
Do you have any advice for the person that doesn't feel creative?
And also it goes along with just having fun with the kids. I think a lot of us, we think we're having fun with them, but the connection really isn't there.
And I'd like to tell people I took everything I learned in the Marine Corps in that first year and threw it right out the window because it does not work in kindergarten. So
the Army was a little bit better though, just so you know.
Oh boy, here we go.
No, that comes from parenting. You gotta hide those veggies somewhere in the meal and get the kid to like it.
That's genius. I love it.
That's what really is PE for in 2020.
but what is those unseen ramifications or unseen perceptions that we're laying the groundwork for?
Sometimes you fail and fall on your face. And
Yeah. Boy, I'd love to expand on that sometime. Number one, just your willingness to admit where your strengths are and are not. It feels like you can be creative and add content.
Everyone's got their strength, I guess, their superpower.
I guess you're always thinking PE.
I think if you're doing your job correctly, you're always growing and developing.
Yeah.
Welcome, physical educators. This is Thinking PE.
Because FIED is more than just fun and games.
I'm Stacy Nelson,
And I'm Jamie Seneca.
and it's our goal to dig deeper beyond the activities that make your class awesome.
So buckle up and join us on this journey.
Welcome to another episode of Thinking PE. We're super excited today because our guest on this episode is Mike Ginicola, and he's one of the most creative people in PE that I know of. And I really think this is an important topic. As we move forward in PE, I think it's going to be super important that we take the creativity that we've gained through distance learning, and let's say in the fall we're having to do social distance learning. It's going to be super important to add creativity there. And then, you know what, once we get back to what we call normal, I think having all these extra tools in our toolbox to be super creative, I think it's going to be a really big boost to our entire profession. So, Jamie, I'd like you, if you could, can you tell us a little bit more about Mike and why we invited him?
Yeah, Mike Ginicola has the Phys Ed Depot. And many of us have probably seen or used his stuff, and you may not realize it. He's got 11,000 followers on Twitter, 8,000 YouTube subscribers. So he's just got a wealth of creative stuff out there that we as FIED teachers have been using. And it's just, he was such a great guy to talk to, and just really down to earth and really humbling in his approach to being creative. So let's not take any more time here, and let's go ahead and listen to this interview with Mike Ginicola of the Phys Ed Depot.
Great, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this. I listened to all the previous episodes while I was walking this week, and you got some really good stuff going on here. My name is Mike Ginicola. I teach elementary PE and health. This is my 22nd year, although this year has been a little shorter than I anticipated with seeing my kids. And I have a website, physeddepot.com. I really love putting resources out there for everybody. Same thing, Mike Ginicola on YouTube. So if anyone needs help with resources for this crazy at-home learning, feel free to check it out. And also Twitter is just amazing for hashtag HPE at home or hashtag phys ed, and you'd be amazed at what's out there for helping you.
Good point. Really, really good point. Yeah, thanks for that.
Well, Mike, and we will definitely include the links in our descriptions so that people can get those resources, because they are some pretty amazing resources. Your website is loaded with opportunities and things to use. So it's just awesome. But now let's get to some tough questions here. Okay.
That wasn't the hardest part?
No, this is it. So kids come into our class, we have the instant activities, get the bodies warmed up, and we got to get the brains warmed up here with some questions. So give you a chance to answer one of these two questions. Something you learned the hard way, and this can be personal or professional. And try, in my case, I try to limit it to just one here, but something you learned the hard way or the funniest thing you've ever seen as a teacher.
Oh, geez. I think what's most pertinent right now for us is that learning something the hard way, which for me was, I was military. and came out thinking it just had to be boot camp with the kids and they had to follow my authority. And I learned very quickly that you have to meet them halfway. They're not just going to follow you unless you're giving them some meaning and a connection. It changes everything. And it took me a few years to figure it out.
Oh, no kidding, Mike. So
Yeah.
what branch were you in?
I was in the Army.
Army. Well, I was in 9 years in the Marine Corps, and I'd like to tell people I took everything I learned in the Marine Corps in that first year and threw it right out the window because it does not work in kindergarten. So we appreciate your service. And actually, we share that's something we learned the hard way.
Yeah, and same back to you. Thank you for your service. That's awesome. The Army was a little bit better, though, just so you know.
Oh, boy. Here we go. Oh, man. Well, one of the first questions I wanted to ask you is how do you come about that? What drives your creativity? You've got such a variety. Can you explain kind of where it comes from?
I wish I could because then I would sell it.
Yeah.
Bottle it up and sell it.
I never stop thinking. I feel like I'm watching a movie or something with my kids and I'll just be like, wow, that would be great for a would you rather video, or that would be great for this. And honestly, a lot of my inspiration comes from everyone else online through Twitter. I'll see something and like I remember the first time I saw the Derby warm-up images that they had, a little black silhouette workout pages, and I was like, wow, that would be amazing, maybe with superheroes in color. I saw some other people, Ryan Jaco and a bunch of others that had done something similar, so you just go from there. And once you go down that rabbit hole, it takes you places sometimes, and it became doing videos and expanding on everything. So I just never stopped thinking about how I could use what's around me, and if I see that my kids like it, I'm like, well, my students will probably like it. They love Minecraft. Hey, I bet you Minecraft would be a great theme in a video or a game or an activity. And you take it from there.
Yeah. Interesting.
Sometimes you fail and fall on your face. And
Yeah.
And that becomes I learned that the hard way moment.
Right, exactly.
That's right. Well, that kind of fits into what we were discussing just before you got on. Was I'm not a great one to come up with things out of the blue. But like I saw your superhero one and I loved your thing, but I thought, but my kids would love to see this old man doing the GIFs rather than the pictures you had in there. So I thought, okay, well, I got a green tarp in the garage. Maybe I could do some green screen. And, that's that kind of thing. I guess you're always thinking PE to plug our podcast a little bit here. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, it's a factory line. We're a community. Someone does something and someone else improves on it, and it just keeps snowballing from there. I think that's the best part of it. No matter what we do, other people take that idea and do something new with it that blows my mind. I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Yeah. It's just our community is amazing that way. And I am a creator. I don't think I'm the best face-to-face teacher compared to what I've seen. I think we all have strengths. I like to create things. There's some people that are amazing with students. I think I'm okay with them, but I think my power lies in creating and sharing, and other people are amazing at taking my ideas and taking it to the next level. So everyone's got their strength, I guess, their superpower.
Yeah. Boy, I'd love to expand on that sometime. Number one, just your willingness to admit where your strengths are and are not. I just respect that so much. It's just so refreshing, because sometimes I feel like when I started getting on Twitter and that kind of thing, it feels like everybody's talking about how great things are. And I started getting this feeling like, if I'm not doing what you're doing, I'm less than, because everybody that's promoting is promoting their thing, whether it's, through a podcast or whatever it is. And I started just getting feel this pressure that, wow, what am I not doing? I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. And I finally had to break out and say, but who are you? And I love that you kind of just gave me permission to do that. Just focus on my strengths and then borrow from you where my strengths aren't, that type of thing.
Yeah, we have those conversations a lot online, especially Twitter, where there's definitely that best self that people put out there. And you have to realize that everyone's got their flaws, and it's natural to want to show your best, but it's tough to have the conversations about your worst. I think that's where the learning really comes from.
Yeah. And I'd like to dig in, and I'm going to wait and bring that concept back when it comes to distance learning, because that's brand new for all of us.
Oh
But
yeah.
before I go there, a question that I had in my head was, what about the person, do you have any advice for the person that doesn't feel creative? And they say, wow, that's nice for Mike. He's always thinking PE, but my strength is kids, or my strength is this. Do you have any advice for, they want to add creativity, they just don't feel they are creative or can?
Right. Well, I think that with our online community, you just do what is best for you. And there's people sharing great ideas. Use them, take them, borrow them. That's why we share them. Maybe you're more amazing at with your face-to-face approach with kids. Blog about it, write about it, share it in a vlog. Just help other people with that concept. Share what your strengths are. Everyone has them. It's just figuring out what yours are and sharing that with the community that might need it, and they don't even realize it, or you don't realize that you have that untapped potential there. And you may not be an inventor, but there's other things that you probably could help with, even if it's creating a website that helps others and becomes a resource hub for our community. That right there is immensely powerful.
Well, I appreciate that. Those are good words. I really feel we need to bolster more people to feel free like they can, and not feel like, oh, I have to be the top of the top in order to put something out. That's really good advice.
Well, let's face it, if they're on there just trying to get new things for their kids, you're already an amazing teacher doing great things. You're trying to be better.
That's very true. Wow, Jamie, that was such a fun interview. There's so much stuff packed in there to that, even just that small segment. One of the things that jumped out at me was how he's super creative guy, but he's inspired by our community. He really relies on the community, and he spoke to that a lot. He spoke very highly of our community, and I loved how he kind of made that factory line analogy, where he knows he's going to put something out there, and you or I are going to grab that and say, hey, I like that, but I need to tweak it just a little bit to make it personal to me. And then so I put something out, and then somebody else grabs it. I love that concept of not hanging on to things so tight, but saying, hey, here's what I do, and then put it out there for the community to use or not use, and not get offended either way.
Yeah, and one thing I found was his superhero analogy. We all have our superhero powers. It was just really interesting for him to acknowledge his power of being creative, but then that other his area of growth where other teachers might be better at something else, and that's where he relies on that community to grow in that area. And the comment that really struck me was when he talked about you're already a great teacher if you've acknowledged that area that you might need to work on, and you're seeking those resources. If your area of growth is in that creativity, and you're listening to this podcast or reaching out to Mike's area and reaching out for those creative resources, that makes you a great teacher when you're constantly trying to improve.
Absolutely. Now, going right along with that, his comment of sometimes we fail, and that's just, we all know that, but it's hard to accept that sometimes and to put that out. And his comment was, sometimes that's when you really, really will grow, and you'll figure things out when you try a few things that didn't work. And I kind of love that concept. Not that we strive for that, but I love that concept. So there's more to this interview, and I can't wait to get to the next segment where we're going to talk to Mike about what he has actually found successful when it comes to distance learning. Nice. Well, if we could go ahead, Jamie, do you have something?
I was going to say, let's keep on the theme of distance learning and just kind of get an insight on what you're finding that is successful with your students, and then maybe we'll talk about how do you evaluate that, or how do you know that's successful, because that's a piece of, we put stuff out there, but how do we know it's working?
Yeah, there's a couple layers to that. A lot of it, I think, starts with where you were before we left. What was your relationship then? If you had a strong relationship, I think it opened up more possibilities for you at home. I think some people right now that maybe face-to-face had a different type of relationship, maybe they were more authoritarian and did things a different way, are finding now that kids are relying on connections more than anything else. And if they're not connected to you and don't feel like you care, you may not be getting much from them. So people have had to backtrack and maybe rethink that, or put out videos, or try to welcome the kids into the learning more. It's not just, here's an expectation that you have to follow when we're face to face, because I'm here in front of you, but now they're at home without your influence. And I guess the big thing now is, did you influence them when you had them? Do they miss you? Did they care about being back with you? Do they want to do things because they know you care and want them to be better?
Yeah.
It's definitely been quite a change for a lot of people, I think.
For sure. Are you doing any direct tracking of, well, we've got Google Classroom gives you some feedback. So
Yep.
is that what you're using?
Yeah, definitely. Every week they turn in their work for me. I don't do a lot of writing with them. They're overburdened as it is. I put out two things. I put out one of the videos for them to maybe follow along with. I give them choices of, I'll put out maybe 10 of my videos and say, here, do 2 or 3, and say, mark is done, or turn it in when you're done. And then I also do some of my self-guided progressions. I'll put maybe 6 of those out and say, choose one. And here are some do-it-yourself alternatives to what a ball would be. Maybe tinfoil balled up, or a crumpled up piece of paper. Could be a rolled up sock, a stuffed animal. So here's what you could use for these, and just complete 1 or 2 of these, and then say, turn it in. And they leave me messages all the time. We had so much fun. We did this, we did that. And you can see how many turn it in based on those numbers. Again, I'm at maybe a 50% engagement, and I'm not sure, I'm not even sure at this point, honestly, if that's good or bad. I think a lot of us, we feel, I think, defeated because we're not at 100. But I don't think that's ever going to be true, honestly.
Maybe if you released a Mike the Drill Sergeant video, that would boost your percentages a little.
Right.
So, but no, that's truthfully, that's kind of the feeling, of all the people we've talked to. That's right in that ballpark of about where everybody's at, and it varies a little bit depending on the focus of the school. My school in particular, they're really heavily focused on the math and reading, with the understanding that parents are absolutely overwhelmed and all specials are just optional. So right. There is that defeated feeling of, no, we're not at 100%. How do we get there? But then it's that fine line we tiptoe of trying to engage our students, but also respecting that they're absolutely overwhelmed at this point.
Exactly.
Mike, did you get any emails to this tune that where a parent would say, you know what, my student goes biking, I've got him, we're all playing soccer in the yard. Do I have to do your PE, or can I just skip it? Do you get that kind of email? And
I have, out of my 470 students, let's say I have 380 online right now, and I got one of those.
Oh, okay.
One, and I persuasively responded back with, that's great, but our learning, involves this, this, and this, and I think that would be great with that being out everyday activity. And you just gotta roll with it, because the parents, there's a whole spectrum of where they're coming from. Either they can help out, but they're choosing not to because maybe they're lazy or selfish, and they want to watch their TV show while their kid's playing Minecraft in the corner and leaving them alone. Yeah. Or they don't have the means and they're not home all day. But they also have some amazing parents that are asking me for more. Like, hey, we're done, but we have more stuff. I'm like, sure. Yes, take everything, please. Do it every day. That would be amazing.
Yeah. No, I like your answer to that. You're being generous with your answer, saying if you can't do it, you can't do it. But you're not allowing the idea that, a bike ride equals what I put out either. You're kind of defending. I just get a little nervous about that we have to fight across America for a position in the schools to start with. And then if we're just letting that go, I just get a little nervous sometimes of what the ramifications could be down the line, in a big picture type of way. I don't know.
I think that's always been a divide in our community. It's fun versus content, and there's always been a balance. And right now we're seeing that all the people that were pushing for just more fun over content are really feeling how the parents are feeling, and just saying, okay, let me just put this out there. If they're moving, then they're doing a great job. Then the other side's getting nervous now because PE is a wounded animal in the education umbrella, and we're always defensive and we want to fit in with the other cool kids. They push back and say, well, you got to be teaching just skill-based. They have to be following what we normally would do. And I guess it comes down to, first, what really is PE for in 2020? And that's already a whole hornet's nest right there. But it's also then that balance of, okay, well, I do, here's a skill-based activity and here's a fun fitness video. Let's maybe give a little bit of both and see what happens. Just try your best. I mean, you can only, put it out there for them to do. You can't make them do it. And you just do your job and offer that skill. Here's what we're working on, and try your best. Here are the options.
Yeah, and I guess go ahead, Jamie.
I would say, and that's kind of my line of thinking as I look forward. We're doing things to get through this distant learning, but what is those unseen ramifications or unseen perceptions that we're laying the groundwork for? As next year starts and this distance learning thing it becomes a thing of the past.
Right. If a kid is journaling at home on their own, is that their language arts work done? Does that count? If they're doing Sudoku puzzles and stuff, does that count as their math? And if that doesn't, then why should just riding your bike down the street count for us?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's definitely a tough balance, and you can see both sides of it. But I think the answer is somewhere in the middle.
So yeah, that was really, really interesting listening to Mike comment on the connection piece. And it kind of goes back to one of our first podcasts when we sent out the survey and talked about the priorities in PE and how relationship was ranked so high. And then even later, distance learning relationships was ranked so high. And it was so interesting that comes back in a different podcast, in a different format, that it doesn't matter how creative you are. If you don't have that relationship with the students, you're not going to get that engagement. And you can have the coolest activities in the world, but if that relationship isn't there, if that connection with the students isn't there, the activities aren't as meaningful.
Absolutely. I think he nailed that right on the head. And it's super interesting. The take he took on it was that you're going to begin where you left off. Meaning, if your super strength, your superhero part of you is the relational part, you're probably going to have that super connection with students right away at that distance learning. If you were better at some of the other areas, you might find connection really hard at the beginning of distance learning. And not to be frustrated with that, but to understand that you might have to put out a few extra videos to make connection with your kids, or find ways to get online live, or, that's where you might need to be creative, is making those connections. Other people, they're good with connections. They need to make, their creativity needs to lead them to finding different ways to do cool stuff online. So I don't know, it was kind of just eye-opening where he said, you're going to begin where you left off, was a big one with me. He also left a lot of choice, I noticed, in his lessons, where he gave his students a lot of choices, but he also had accountability with it. I don't know if you caught that piece of what he was saying, but I thought that was very, very interesting to me. One more thing, and then I know you got more that you grabbed out of this, Jamie, but I heard the words roll with it, balance, the answer's in the middle. And he said it's in several different ways. And that's huge for me as these things come up. It seems like his answer, and he's been around the block a little bit, so he's got all these experiences to know that when people are arguing about different things, in PE, should it be done this way, or here's what's happening? His answer seems to be, it's probably in the middle somewhere of the extremes. And he seems just to be so relaxed in that. And man, I think that's what I gained from listening to him, is that, yeah, I can have an opinion, but if I can get off my high horse and just listen to other people, maybe I can help find that answer in the middle somewhere and not be so uptight about it, and just view it more of a journey to find that middle rather than try to prove somebody that I'm right. So that's what I gained from that piece of that, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of growth there, but a piece that I pulled out of there was the wounded animal reference. And that, Fayed, whenever, as budgets tighten up and during this pandemic, as budgets tighten up, it's going to be on on the discussions for next year, and cutting Fayed always comes up, and you wonder, what are we setting the stage here for? And if we haven't taken a diligent approach, if we haven't validated our profession, are we setting ourselves up for that wounded animal scenario? And I really struggle with that, and really that's always in the back of my head is what's the future going to look like?
I think it's important that we have all of these elements. The fun, we do need to have content too. We're a profession, and we have to have physical fitness. We have to have these other things. And as I've been listening to him, it kind of came to my mind that creativity seems to be the kind of the balancing point with all this, where creativity adds fun if you're a content oriented person, and creativity adds content if you're more of a fun or fitness focused person. Either way, it's the creative piece that kind of hinges and allows you to bring both of those into play. And this next segment, that's kind of exactly what we asked Mike about. It feels like you can be creative and add content. You don't have to it doesn't have to be a divide. Can you kind of share a little bit on that theme?
No, that comes from parenting. You gotta hide those veggies somewhere in the meal and get the kid to like it. That's what we do. That's what we do with the fitness now. Here's this superhero life-size board game. The kids are into this, not realizing that, oh my gosh, I've been doing exercise for 30 minutes that they normally wouldn't do if you said just go do a bunch of push-ups. But now they're collecting superheroes in a board game, and it's just changing the whole perspective on it. And a narrative, a story, anything like that. Okay, here we're doing this, but now here's a Minecraft theme. Oh wow, or Roblox, and it changes everything for them because it's what they enjoy, it's what they like. It's the same thing for adults. We're no different.
Yeah, that's true. Along that same theme, of the activities you've put out, are there a couple that jump out at you that the kids have really enjoyed that include content in the way you were just talking about?
Yeah, the self-guided progressions that I've been doing for years now, I kind of revamped them a little bit for the at-home learning, and I got a lot of good feedback on those, working on tossing and catching and other skills. It's been a little limited because obviously what can they create at home? They can make a paddle with cardboard, or even hit things in the air with a book if they need to, paper plate taped with a spatula, anything, but it does limit what you can do. You just got to offer it. But I got great feedback on that. And then lately I've been doing the scavenger hunt videos, and people have been talking about adding more content. And looking at you, Ross Chakrian, if you ever listen to this. And I immediately went to work with the in-between slides being a question about, okay, so would you step with the opposite leg during overhand throwing, asking questions about our fitness testing and our health and skill-related content. So you got to squeeze it in there, and the kids are doing this really fun video, but now they're getting questions in between and probably not even caring that they are thinking about some actual content that they learned in school because they're about to do another round of this or that. So you just squeeze it right in there and blend it in, because it's a lot different than just saying, okay, well, here's tossing and catching. Let me ask you some questions in a Google form. Turn it in for me. Kids are going to be like, no, that doesn't sound fun at all. Or they're going to turn in the blank form, because that happens 50% of the time when they all turn in something that doesn't even have content in it. You're like, did they do that on purpose, or do they really just not know how to turn this in? So I've stopped having them turn in actual stuff like that right now.
Yeah, I did too. I went away from that. Would you mind going into a little bit more detail for the listeners that maybe aren't familiar with that term, that self-guided? Just define that a little more for maybe somebody that hasn't heard that term before.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's funny when you do these things for so long, you kind of forget that someone may not even understand. So for me, when kids are doing a self-guided progression, I'll put maybe 9 different challenge levels up, and each one gets progressively harder, but they're doing it on their own. So you're promoting that autonomy and the mastery in themselves. So they're taking that learning and owning it, and they are doing those challenges, and that frees the teacher up when we're at school to walk around and help the kids that need more help. So you're basically giving them that framework for what their learning is for the day and saying, okay, go do this. First is tossing and catching 10 times with 2 hands. Step 2, toss and catch with your right hand, then toss and catch with your left. And then it gets progressively harder from there. So they just basically follow the directions on getting through those 9 activity levels. You can have them track the learning so that for us, plickers, magnets, or clickers, or any other kind of tracking device to see how far they are. It gives you that visual on, okay, well, Johnny is now at level 2, 20 minutes later, something's going on. And it really gives you some input as to what's going on that you may not have noticed before, because kids are so good at hiding when they're lost. Just by scanning the room, you may never see that they're not actually keeping up. But if they're tracking what they're doing and they're having difficulty with this, you could then see it and go intervene. And it's a great formative check. I really enjoy it.
That's phenomenal.
We're going to tell you, I went to your website at Phys Ed Depot, and it literally took me less than 3 seconds to find your self-guided progressions. Just scroll down to self-guided progressions, and they are right there. Throwing, catching, jump rope. There is an unbelievable list and just an amazing resource. I really like that. We'll call it challenge by choice, where they choose that progression. It progressively gets harder to promote that personalized learning.
Well, that's just it. You can give them a choice of all the equipment, and sometimes the way that they want to go about it, which really adds another layer for them. You can say, here's 10 different types of throwing equipment. Do you want something smaller, something larger, something softer? So you got to meet their needs again. And when they have that choice, it just makes the engagement go through the roof, I found.
And if a Marine Corps grunt can find it on your website, it's user-friendly.
Wow. Well, that was super fun. That's just loaded with content or with stuff for us to talk about here. We kind of cut him off right in the middle of something. We're going to get to his second part of what he said, but this is just such loaded stuff. I really wanted to stop. I love the hiding the vegetables analogy about having, we as PE teachers, we have these standards. We got some things we not only have to teach, we want to teach. That's why we're teachers. We love to teach content. We want to teach a throw and that kind of stuff. Now, how do we hide these vegetables and make it fun? That's what we do. I just love that analogy.
Oh, absolutely. It's age old. You have the as a parent, you have the vegetables. You got to get your kid to eat the vegetables. So how do you do it? You got to add some fun to it. Here comes the airplane.
Yep.
We trick our kids to eat those vegetables. We sneak them into the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and that's really the same thing that we have going on here. As Phy Ed teachers, when those kids enter our gym, we've got the fun taken care of. I mean, it's the excitement that's brought to the gym, and now as professionals, it's sneaking that content in there, and that's the part I get excited about.
Yeah, and that self-guided progression, I really like what he was saying there. I've done some of it. I just have never called it that. I've never really written it out like he has it all laid out on his website. There's such great resource for people. I just think it's huge.
It really is. It's a very unique way to add fun to skill work, and unique for the student. And it's a very unique way to build on those skills versus instead of just standing off to the side and practicing that overhand throw while we remind you to step with your opposite foot. He had it all laid out there on his website for a progression that kids can challenge themselves. And then if he had that formative piece, where as a teacher, you can step back and just kind of look around the gym and see which levels the kids are at, and that triggers you to go help which kids need the help.
I think that's such solid foundational teaching to create activities like that where it frees the teacher. Now you're out targeting those students that really do need your help. And he said the engagement goes up because of the choice, and that's
and the fun.
Yeah, because the students, it's personal to them, and when you add choice and you add it personal, they get the freedom to choose what they want to do, the ball that they want to use. And in distance learning, they have to create the ball sometimes and create the paddle, and so you're adding creativity to it too. So you've got this content, and he's just adding all these other options around it, really creating an atmosphere so these students are individually motivated. And then he goes around and helps the ones that need the help. Genius.
So yeah, and the flip side of that, so as professionals, as physical educators, we put fun to content and then content to fun. So this next part of putting content to fun, this is the part where you need to find yourself a place where you're get rid of all the distractions. Go turn down Wheel of Fortune, close the windows so you can't hear the traffic, turn up your Miracle Ear, because this next part of putting content to fun is what separates us as professionals.
Absolutely. I love how you make that separation too. And so it's kind of like the scavenger hunt he mentioned. Scavenger hunts are just fun. But now the content that you can slip into that makes it different than going out and doing just an average scavenger hunt out on the playground. You can have kids doing these activities that show you they are gaining and practicing. It's kind of like we discussed just a little bit ago about this idea of a parachute. With the parachute, you bring the parachute out, the fun's taken care of.
Fun's taken care of.
Guaranteed. But now, since you got that taken care of, now as a professional, we can sneak in little ways that we can have them work on different skills with that parachute. A lot of different types of our standards fit right into using that parachute. It's not just fun and games, although the kids would never know it.
And that's what makes it awesome, you know. And I say again, this is what separates us as professionals. It's adding the content to the fun, because right now, anybody that's listening, I just want you to stop and think of your favorite game that you play in class. The one game that the kids just go wild for. I'm going to practice a little bit of wait time here. All right. So now that you've thought about that one game that the kids absolutely love, think how you can sneak in some standards, sneak in some content into that fun. And that's what separates us. Because now take a tag game, take any game in your gym, and they can play that same game out at recess. And what's the difference between them playing at recess and them playing it in your gym? Is in the gym, you have the instruction. You are slipping in that content and providing that feedback to better their skills or meet certain standards.
Jamie, I just think that's going to be super important for us. Going forward, I think we're going to have to fight for our position in schools at some point. It just seems like whenever budget cuts come up and those types of things, we're on the chopping block. And I think if we can really highlight that no, we're not just overpaid recess monitors. There's a lot of thought that goes on with every activity we do. It's not just fun and games, as we've talked about.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a huge point. Absolutely. Any more you want to say about this? I know we kind of get giddy and excited. We're such PE nerds. I can't stand it sometimes.
Just remember, fun to content and content to fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was kind of a fun revelation that Mike kind of got us to by listening to him. And that's going to take us to this next segment, and it's another really good segment that he's talking about, where he touches on this idea of gamification, which self-guided progressions is part of. But he's going to define gamification and give a little bit more insight. And he really got our brains thinking. I hope he does the same for the other listeners.
As far as creativity and gamification, what comes to your mind when I put those two together?
Yeah, and for the people that don't know, gamification is basically the idea of taking what makes video games fun for people and applying that to another field, education, business. Like we're gamified all the time. If you are using credit card points, you're basically gamified. It's amazing. So it really boosts engagement. My self-guided progressions are basically simple gamification, because it gives them small targets of learning. Okay, I reached level 1. Where's level 2 at? Oh, here's level 2. Where's level 3? Instead of saying go from A to B, you have A.1 through A.9, and then finally they get to B. So they have all these little mini goals and self-checks. And it's really powerful for them to see small increases in success. It changes a lot. And it's something that originally we got a lot of pushback on when we pushed out the idea in the field, because people really thought it was just playing video games. Whereas it's just taking what makes the games addictive for people and applying that to something else. First time I did jump rope, it was instead of back with my Army, first 3 years of here's the jump rope, go practice it, see if you can get to 50. And kids, the older ones especially, my grade 5 and 6 kids, didn't really want to do it. They don't want to sweat. Then I saw something on Twitter with jump rope ninja belts. And I said, well, let me try this, and pushed it out. Here are these levels that you can attain. Every time you get to a new level, I'm going to give you a privilege in class. Like you could then, for long ropes later, pick your teammates or this or that. And I have never seen kids sweat so much in my life getting through these belts. It changed my entire way of thinking and how to get kids to learn your content. It was amazing to me. I haven't looked back since.
And so it wasn't the rewards, or the motivation wasn't big time trinkets. You know, you weren't giving them stickers. You were giving them basically what you wanted them to do. You wanted them to get that harder, but no, you can't do that until you show me you're a ninja, and then I will allow you, as the nice teacher I am, to do this hard thing that is really what I want you to aim for. That's genius. I love it.
They eat it up, and it's so simple to do. And a lot of people do it without even realizing.
Yeah.
Which is the best.
Yeah. The word gamification kind of can be too big of a word sometimes. It's really a simple concept in many ways, although there are some really good creative things when you talk like that. That's a different level of gamification than I'm used to. So.
Oh yeah, it can be as simple as you want it to be, or it could be spreadsheets and software if you want it to be as well.
Yeah.
I did one year where kids were online characters, and they would get points in class for what they did, and they would go home and use those points to outfit their superheroes or whatever they had with different outfits and different pets. And oh my gosh, they were like begging for it every time. Wait, you didn't give us our points. And okay, I'm sorry. Well, we can't leave class without doing the points, or having a random event in class, a random spinner where, you know, I may have to dance to a song they choose, or something funny and random can happen. And also it goes along with just having fun with the kids. I think a lot of us, we think we're having fun with them, but the connection really isn't there. And it's like getting kids to laugh and being a funny person is different than having fun together. It's a nuance that I think a lot of us maybe don't appreciate.
Boy, I'd love for you to teach an online course on that topic, because that's I have just had 2 student teachers, and wanting to dive into, there was a difference. I would teach, and I'd be in with these kindergartners, and we're jiving back and forth, and they're rolling. Of course, I'm the funniest guy around. I got to tell my wife that. You need to be watching me in front of kindergartners. You'll see how funny of a guy you married. But there's this piece where I could just, it was a duo back and forth. We were just having fun. And then I watched my student teacher, who was phenomenal, but they hadn't developed that yet. And it was just different. That's why I said I'd love to. I have no idea what it is. I just know that there was a difference between what the 2 of us, and he started gaining it by the end. But I don't know how to teach it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I've had quite a few student teachers, and it is fascinating trying to figure out how to get them to be more ready when they get to us. I don't think many universities have really found the answer to that yet. Some of them have a strength. Some teach class management better, some more content. I don't think anyone's really had a great balance yet. And I think a lot of us don't have a great balance yet. Now, I'm 22 years in, and I'm still working it out myself.
Yeah.
You're always growing. You're always developing. I think if you're doing your job correctly, you're always growing and developing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike, I really do want to thank you. I appreciate you giving us an hour of your time here. I would hope that you'd be open to doing it if we come up with another topic sometime. If you'd be open to coming back on, that'd be fantastic. But anything, I'd like to again let you reiterate your website, how you're best reached, and just kind of close it off with any final statements you'd like to tell people that might be listening.
Yeah, well, yeah, physatdepot.com, easy enough to find me. Twitter, I'm physatdepot, and I'm on there all the time, so it's an easy way to get in touch with me. I love helping people. I get a lot of questions all the time. Number one question is, how do you make those videos? And it's just simply PowerPoint. It's really an amazing tool. So thank you for even having me on and having this great conversation. I'm sorry for if you're going to get pushback for what we talked about.
I'm putting it all to you.
Happy invited back. I may not be invited back. We'll see.
Oh, no,
It's
this
all
has
good. We
been
greatly appreciate it, Mike. It was truly our honor.
Thank you so much. It was
fantastic.
great. It was great.
Well, there's a good education on gamification. He's got a good handle on it. I believe he's done some actual presentations on the idea of gamification. He just is so crystal clear with how he explains things. He feels like he's really thought through it for sure.
And it's pretty awesome. I mean, truthfully, I would say up until 4 or 5 weeks ago, I wasn't even familiar with the term gamification. So I mean, that's why I love doing this. Is I mean, he had talked about it. You're constantly building. You're constantly seeking growth, and this gamification concept. I mean, it just opens up so many more doors on that engagement piece that we've really been hammering away on here in the last 3 podcasts.
Yeah, especially I think it was the last one where we talk about the ICCU.
I remember it was James Bond and Jason Bourne
That's
snuck
right.
on enemy lines there and captured some intel from the students themselves on these elements of ICCU.
Yeah, how do we forget that? Yeah, the elements were ICCU. Remember, make it interesting, give the students choice, make it creative, or allow the students to create, not just be creative on our side. Allow the students to create, and then make it unique. I'm sorry, not useful. Make it unique, and then part of being unique is this personalization. And this is the piece that we did an interview that hasn't been released yet, and I can't wait for people to hear Sean Reither. He made a comment, and this is kind of a lead into that podcast, so you can listen to that later. He talked about the WIFM, what's in it for me factor for students. And that nails this. It personalizes it. When you're doing this gamification, you're allowing them to take their own route through these games. And if you think about video games, I'm not a big gamer, but I've watched my kids play enough, and I've played enough of them to know the idea isn't that everybody follows the same path. It's that you get to design your own game and world and in the process. And that's what these game designers know, how to maximize that.
And it is ICCU, and it's that unique spot that makes it, the personalized is what makes it unique, because ICCU works well, but if we made it ICCUP for personalized, I don't think we should go there.
ICUP, I don't know.
I think we should just stick with ICCU. It's interesting, give the students choice, allow them to create, and make it unique for them.
I don't know. Maybe we can add an ing onto it and really make it fun. I don't know. No. Jamie, I don't know, your brain sometimes, the direction it goes, frankly, I love it. It's a lot of fun.
You're gonna get us banned in 48 states, and
that's right.
This isn't going to be one of them.
But it is so fun to make these connections. You know, from podcast to podcast, you're hearing these professionals say similar things, and then we interview students, and they're reflecting the same concepts. And that's why we started this podcast called Thinking PE, because we're looking for the clues behind the fun. What, you know, you can look at in a gym and see they're having fun, but what makes it really good is the thinking that goes on behind it.
Oh, and that's just it, because it's not about the activities, because the activities, the parachute's always going to be fun.
Yes.
It's the thought process and the planning that goes into putting content into that fun, and because you can take a game that you see at some conference or something, and you bring it to your gym, and it might not work because you didn't make it unique. You didn't give the student, it wasn't interesting for those students. You didn't add your own personal flair to it. And that goes back to those 4 elements of engagement, you know.
Yeah.
Make it interesting, give the students choice, allow them to create, and make it unique for them.
Damn. Right on. You know, he mentioned some things while he was talking about the gamification. Number one, he broadened it in my mind to the point where he was saying, well, we're getting gamified all the time. It's a fancy word for motivation. What motivates you to do what you do? Why do you use credit card points? Well, I'll guarantee I went when I got a credit card with the one who's giving me the highest percentage back and on which points, and who made it easiest to cash in my points. You know, it's genius what they do. And I know I'm being sucked in, but I'm okay with it because I'm motivated by, we went to Hawaii based on spending for 10 years my Visa card sent me to Hawaii. I mean, I'm a sucker. I got sucked into that every time. If they're going to send me to Hawaii because I'm going to use their credit card, they win.
Yeah, you go to Hawaii. See, that's the difference between you and I. You go to Hawaii, and I make eBay purchases when the eBay bucks increase. So there's a that tells the story right there.
Well, there's the personalization, right? Exactly. But I love it that he brought it to that spot, because he also said we're probably doing gamifying as a natural gym teacher anyway in a lot of areas. And he just has shown a few other areas like his personalized learning and the progression chart from what he talked about earlier. And I think it'd be fun to have even more discussions, a whole podcast just on gamifications and the different ways we can add this creativity to our content in that way.
That's right. It is something we probably, a lot of us probably do naturally, but to give it a name, and then it's something we can hone on to improve on.
Yeah.
Whether it's through seminars or webinars or professional development, but by giving it that name, now we have a common language to it, and a set of common norms or standards tied to it, of strategies to implement. Yeah,
for sure. And then go back to other parts that he shared, is then share it on Twitter with the rest of the world. Share an idea. You don't know, what teacher's going to take that and tweak it, and you just impacted another 1,000 students because you were willing to take a silly idea that you had, make something better, and then share it.
Let's go back. We're all creators, and we're all improvers too.
Yeah. The other piece he mentioned that really caught me by surprise a little bit is the difference between making students laugh and really having fun with them. Do you remember when he was kind of talking about that? It was just, it really made me think of, I think I'm better just making students laugh. I need to get better at let me just relax and laugh with them and have a good time with them. And I think he's onto something there. The students really relax with us then, and they're going to buy into much more of what we're doing if we're giggling and laughing and have a good time.
And that might be a piece, we want our students to be engaged. I think we can create that when we're engaged with them. How much does that excitement grow when all of a sudden we become one of the taggers, or
yes,
we're playing the game. So now, just like you said, we're not just we're laughing with them.
Yeah, for sure. The last piece I just wanted to bring up, he used the word balance again. This idea of somewhere in the middle of balance between content and fun. It can't be all just fun. It can't be all just skills. Can't be all one thing. There's a piece in there, and I think we have to be generous with each other to allow each individual gym teacher, phy-ed teacher, to express that in the way that fits their personality the best. And especially on social media, have a big place for grace out there. We can be disagreeing and have conversations all we want. That's fantastic, as long as there's a lot of grace around it. For if I do something a little different, that doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. But we can be open to a conversation. So how do we have that conversation without crushing somebody? Got any quick thoughts on that?
Like you said, I think it's just the grace. It's to understand that we're all coming from different places. Like Mike had said, we all have different strengths, and to jump on somebody that's trying to improve in an area that they've identified as a weakness, hey, good for them for trying to grow as a teacher. So okay. I think it's just that grace piece, that understanding that we all come from different circumstances, different situations, different interests, different abilities.
So instead of calling somebody's idea wrong, maybe the approach of, hey, I see that differently. Or have you thought of this? Maybe you've got some insights for me, but I do it differently, or I view the whole concept differently. It's still a different approach than attacking when you approach it that way. I think maybe we'll do a podcast on that, of how do we have conversations without offending. Maybe that should be a good topic for us someday. With this one, we should wrap this up though, Jamie. This has been one of my favorite conversations for whatever reason. There was some things that just clicked for me during not only the listening to him in the interview, but then when we were editing this together, it was really kind of fun for all these things to kind of come together. So any final words from you as we lock this out?
No, it was very humbling and very inspiring to talk to Mike. You know, what a
Absolutely.
great person for the profession.
Yeah. And there is more to this interview. We're going to pull it up on a future podcast. We thank everybody for hanging around with us. If you stuck around this far, we're humbled by people that are willing to listen to us two badger. Even though we know the people we've interviewed have great content, it's still humbling to see that people do view and will listen. And some of you keep coming back. And we're just so excited to have this thing getting off the ground and being able to do something to improve the profession of physical education.
Keep that seatbelt on. It's been a pretty wild ride so far. I'm Jamie Sinek. I'm out.
All right, Stacy Nelson, I'm out.